The story begins in an isekai world where an assassin is on a mission when he suddenly senses another presence nearby. He looks up and freezes in disbelief as he recognizes that the figure before him is none other than the legendary silent assassin. Realizing that Lady Luck isn't on his side, he still refuses to hand over his target without a fight. The assassin darts around swiftly, throwing daggers with deadly precision, but they pass right through his opponent without leaving a single mark. Their blades clash, yet the silent assassin proves to be far beyond his league and effortlessly immobilizes him until his own sword falls on him from above, ending the battle in an instant. With his rival defeated, the silent assassin calmly approaches his target, who appears to be a corrupt noble trembling in fear while sleeping. The silent assassin takes his stance to finish the job once and for all. The story then rewinds a bit back to a school on Earth where a guy named Tsukasa is busy sorting out his club budgets when a girl walks up and invites him to hang out. Tsukasa, being the hardworking student council president, politely declines and apologizes, explaining that he's too busy. The whole class seems lively, filled with laughter and small talk, but our MC, Akira Oda, quietly sits in a chair reading an isekai manga. Nanase curiously asks him about it, but Akira barely responds and doesn't bother much. It's clear that our guy Akira is so invisible in class that most people don't even know he exists. Even Akira himself admits that he's practically non-existent and that whenever someone tries to talk to him, it feels unreal, like a glitch in his daily routine. But he never imagined how drastically that was soon going to change. Suddenly, his phone starts glitching, the screen flickers, and a dark magic circle appears above the classroom. Panic spreads everywhere, especially among the girls, as bright light envelops them and they find themselves teleported to an unknown place. Confused and terrified, some students whisper if it's a terrorist attack, but before they can make sense of it, an old knight in armor appears and asks them to shut up because the king wishes to speak. A girl asks if there's some cosplay going on. To answer all of their queries, the king himself explains that they've been summoned to a distant world called Morrigan. He continues, saying they now stand in Redici, the greatest nation of the human continent, and that they were brought here to save this world from the looming demon invasion that only heroes from another world can defeat. Hearing this, some students, including our boy Akira, can't hide their excitement as it feels just like the classic isekai stories they've always loved to read. The old geezer calls them one by one to place their hand on the orb and check their status, saying that only one among them can become the hero. The first to rush forward is a guy named Daisuke Waki, too eager to wait any longer. His class turns out to be Tamer, but the geezer reassures him that his stats far surpass those of normal humans in this world, meaning he can still support the hero and become a champion. Next, a girl named Yuki Ueno steps up and turns out to be a Dispel mage. One by one, students reveal their classes, some becoming knights, others healers, and all sorts of roles filling up the ranks. The geezer keeps recording their results while the rest grow impatient until he finally reveals that they can check their status without even touching the crystal. Everyone immediately opens up their status screen, curious about their roles. A guy asks Akira about his class, and our boy calmly replies that he's an assassin. The guy mocks him, saying it fits him perfectly, but Akira doesn't react. Instead, he's quietly troubled as he compares his stats to everyone else's. For some strange reason, his numbers are completely broken, far beyond anything normal, at least 10 times stronger than any of his classmates. Just then, Tsukasa Sato excitedly steps up to the orb, and the president's status is revealed as the chosen hero. The whole class bursts into excitement, and the old geezer proudly explains that Tsukasa's stats are already double the maximum attack power of any knight in their world. Akira stays uneasy because even the hero's stats turn out to be lower than his own. The strange gap makes him doubt the whole story about the Demon Lord, and he starts suspecting that the king and the princess might be hiding something. He decides it's best not to reveal his broken stats to anyone. When he checks his skill board, he notices a skill named Conceal Presence, and after using it, he vanishes completely. Once everyone's stats and abilities are recorded, they're told to rest for the day. Akira quietly slips away, but as he trails behind his classmates, he notices a camera placed above them, which only raises his suspicions even more. He keeps moving carefully, though it seems like a soldier dressed in white notices something unusual. Eventually, he finds an abandoned room and makes it his temporary hideout, hoping no one else discovers it. Later, he heads out to gather information about this world. Looking around, he realizes it truly feels like an isekai world. As he tests his movements, jumping from place to place, he's amazed by how absurdly strong and fast he's become. He wonders if these boosts are part of the summoning benefits. Suddenly, he senses someone nearby and immediately conceals himself to investigate. From the shadows, he overhears the king plotting with the princess, telling her to make sure the newly summoned students stay away from the archives, since he doesn't want them gaining any unnecessary knowledge about this world. Akira feels certain that the king is up to no good and even considers assassinating him to put an end to everything. but he hesitates and decides to hold back for now. The next morning, he keeps his conceal presence skill active while secretly eating the breakfast snacks. He thinks about warning his classmates, but knows the chances of them believing him are very low. Meanwhile, the so-called hero Tsukasa is busy giving a grand speech, encouraging everyone to accept the king's proposal and defeat the demon lord. Akira finds it ridiculous how easily they trust the king and the princess without any proof of their sincerity. Later, during their first training session, the Knight Commander Seren Mithray arrives and introduces himself to the summoned students. He explains that they will be training for a month before entering the underground labyrinth and that he plans to personally guide them through actual combat experience. While Akira secretly observes them, he decides to sneak away again to gather more information. However, Seren soon notices something and instructs his subordinate Gilles to take over the training while he goes after the hidden observer. He follows Akira to a nearby fountain and suddenly speaks up, startling him by asking if something is bothering him. Akira grows tense, wondering if his concealment skill has worn off, but Seren calmly explains that his concealment is still active. The only reason he found him is because of his special eyes that can detect differences in temperature. Seren reveals that these are a type of mystic eyes, and in a surprisingly kind tone, he assures Akira that there is nothing to worry about. Akira still finds the man sus and bluntly asks if he is not working with the king. The knight smiles faintly and replies that he has his own problems before winking at our boy, telling him to keep their talk a secret from the king. As they sit together, Akira requests permission to access the archives so he can learn more about this world. Seren instead asks what level Akira's concealed presence skill is and is left stunned when he hears that it is already maxed out. Akira admits that all his other skills are still stuck at level 1 and that he has no idea how to raise them. Seren offers to teach him personally, saying that there is not much of real value in the archives anyway. Even though Akira gets a bit excited about the whole Isekai situation, his thoughts drift back to his own world and the family waiting for him there. Seren promises that he will help Akira become a first-rate assassin and even find a way back to his world, but in return, he wants to learn about the knowledge of Akira's homeland. The two shake hands with a smile, and a new bond of friendship is formed. Days pass as Seren keeps his word, teaching Akira everything from how elves and beastmen live on separate continents to how strengthening one's core is the key to improving combat ability. He explains that while class levels only rise through defeating monsters, skill levels can be trained and refined through constant practice. When Akira talks about the wonders of planet Earth, the commander listens with fascination. The idea of shops, airplanes, and information being shared across the world in seconds leaves him speechless. Akira laughs lightly, admitting that he used to think those things were ordinary but now realizes their true importance after losing access to them. As time moves on, a full month of training passes. Gilles starts complaining to his commander for dumping all the training work of the students on him while he spends his days with Akira. Seren argues that Akira is far too interesting to ignore and that his stories about his home world are equally captivating. He even reveals that Akira's world is the same one where the first hero came from, and on top of that, Akira's concealment skill is already maxed out. Gilles looks shocked, pointing out that only the first hero had ever reached such a level. Just then, there's a knock at the door, and Akira walks in. He explains that he has been sneaking into the archives and reading nonstop, but now he has found something troubling and came to ask about it. The commander chuckles and admits that he's the one who wrote that document, disguising it as a cookbook. He adds that he had a feeling Akira would eventually find it. When Akira presses for details, Seren reveals that the king is a wicked man trying to twist the laws of the world, even if it means destroying everything in the process. Seren continues by saying that even the Order of Knights carries its own grudges against the crown. Akira has already figured out what he means and knows that the commander is planning to remove the king in a more peaceful way. Our boy admits that he could have taken the king out the very day he was summoned to this world, but he hesitated and just couldn't. He explains that he doesn't want his mother and sister to see him as a murderer when he returns home. The commander reassures him that being an assassin by class doesn't mean he has to act like one. Hearing those words warms Akira's heart as he admits that no one has ever treated him this kindly before. The commander smiles and says he will need Akira's help with something before sending him back to his world. As the story moves forward, the entire summoned group prepares to enter the Great Labyrinth of Cantonin. Seren gives a speech, urging them to hold their heads high as heroes. Seeing the public cheering for them madly, Akira finds it ridiculous how much excitement the crowd is showing over what is basically just a trial run in a maze. While walking, he senses a strange presence nearby and appears before a blue-haired girl. Startled, she questions what he's doing there and then counters by asking if he even realizes how many sacrifices were made just to summon them. After a short exchange, she turns to leave, saying that she feels their paths are bound to cross again soon. Later that day, the summoned class continues battling their way through the dungeon, triggering traps and fighting wave after wave of monsters. Everyone starts getting exhausted, and Akira suggests to Saran that they should retreat for the day. The commander agrees, saying they've done enough. Saran then unleashes a powerful technique to clear a path, but as they climb the stairs, another group of monsters appears, blocking their escape. Tsukasa begins to panic before remembering the small orb the princess gave him, which could be used as a smoke bomb for emergencies. He throws it, creating a thick cloud, and for a moment, everyone thinks they might finally escape, but their hope fades when a massive minotaur steps out of the shadows. Gilles and the others are shocked, saying that kind of monster shouldn't even appear on this floor. Akira quickly jumps between the walls using his agility and tries to strike the minotaur, but his blade snaps against its hide, forcing him to retreat. He rushes back to check on Tsukasa, who's already injured with a broken arm, yet is still worrying about the others. Akira grabs a sword from a nearby classmate and dashes toward the beast, yelling at the hero to stop pushing himself so hard. When Tsukasa starts acting strangely, Akira realizes something is wrong and orders the Dispel mage to use her magic on him. As she casts the spell, a curse visibly breaks, freeing Tsukasa from its effect. Without wasting a second, Akira leaps back into battle and tells Seren that he wants to try something special. The commander immediately understands and joins in, launching a bright, thunderous attack to distract the Minotaur, while Akira moves to its opposite side and activates his shadow magic. A dark pit forms beneath our hero as he barely manages to keep control over the immense force of shadow magic flowing through him. Akira directs it toward the Minotaur, and within seconds, several shadow tentacles rise from the ground, moving swiftly toward the monster. Just as the Minotaur breaks free from the effects of the shock and prepares to attack, the tentacles pierce through its thick hide like sharp needles and begin to drag it down with incredible force. The beast lets out a final roar before its entire body sinks into the darkness. Even its head gets severed and is then swallowed beneath the shadows. But right after the battle ends, the unstable magic begins to go out of control, and our boy falls to his knees trying to suppress it. Commander Seren suddenly appears beside him and places a firm hand on his back, telling him to calm himself and take control. Akira slowly steadies his breathing, forcing the shadows back into the void until the spell finally fades away. Seren comments that the shadow magic seems to have taken a hefty toll, to which Akira responds with a tired smile, saying that he survived at least. Later that evening, when they all return, Seren commends his efforts and praises the fact that there were 0 casualties in the mission, but Akira argues that it only went so well because Seren was there to back him up, explaining that during training, this spell had always gone berserk. The commander then admits that he has never even heard of an extra skill called shadow magic and warns that although it appears to be incredibly powerful, the lack of control could easily turn fatal, telling Akira to be more careful whenever he decides to use it again. The commander then presents Akira with a katana, explaining that it was forged by the very first hero himself. Akira holds the blade, yet he questions why Seren would entrust something so valuable to him instead of the current hero. Seren calmly replies that the kid already possesses his own toy, the Holy Sword, and adds that if he were to carry this one as well, it would likely draw the king's suspicion since he had quietly stolen the katana from the royal treasure vault. Akira grips the blade proudly and inspects it closely to see if anything has been engraved on its surface. Seren admits that although there is some text carved onto it, he has never been able to understand what it says. When Akira looks at the markings, he instantly recognizes the language as Japanese. Alongside a name, a short prayer is etched into the metal. Seeing this, Akira smiles and says that he would have loved to meet this Mr. X hero, and Seren agrees, though he admits that such a thing would never be possible. They soon turn their discussion towards Tsukasa's curse, acknowledging that it is still there and is far too powerful to be broken by normal means. Seren, however, seems to have a hunch about what might be happening and shares it with our hero. At that very moment, the princess is seen performing black puppet magic in an attempt to curse the hero Tsukasa using a glowing crystal. But before she can finish the spell, Akira appears out of nowhere and slices straight through the crystal, picking up one of its broken fragments. Calling her a witch, he points his blade at her throat and demands an explanation for what she is doing. He tries to have a normal conversation with her for a moment, but when the princess continues to repeat that everything she does is for the king, he loses patience, withdraws his sword, and retreats. Right after Akira leaves, the princess opens a cabinet, and it turns out that she has kept several cursed crystals prepared to brainwash every last one of the summoned heroes. Akira takes the crystal fragment to Commander Seren and admits that he has shown his face to the princess because he wanted to know what she was truly thinking. The commander tells him to make sure that he never sleeps inside the palace again, and when Akira asks why, Seren explains that the princess will definitely try to have him murdered and might already be ordering her guards to search for him. Akira then apologizes for acting recklessly and asks if his mentor is angry, but the commander calmly tells him that it is the duty of adults to cover for their youngsters. The next morning, when Akira wakes up, he hears a loud commotion spreading throughout the palace and rushes to see what has happened. Tsukasa appears before him, looking, and it appears that his curse has finally disappeared. Akira feels momentarily happy until he learns about an attack involving the commander. When he rushes over to see, he finds Saren lying on the ground with a dagger pierced through his chest, and the blade looks exactly like his own. Akira's eyes widen as he shouts in disbelief, unable to accept what he is seeing. Yet all of the summoned classmates begin accusing him of the crime. They insist that the weapon belongs to him, and even though Akira tries to remind them that his dagger had already broken, none of them seems to listen as their minds remain clouded by the curse. Tsukasa, being the only one left without a curse, tries his best to calm everyone down, but the chaos only grows worse when the king and the princess appear, revealing that the entire scene had been a setup from the start. They immediately order the knights to execute Akira on the spot, forcing our boy to use his concealed presence, skill, and vanish before their eyes to save himself. He quietly slips through the shadows and talks to Gilles, who tells him everything about what really happened. Gilles reveals that the commander was actually assassinated by the king's own secret unit known as the Night Ravens and warns Akira that they will soon be coming after him next. He advises him to head to the commander's quarters, where he will find travel gear and supplies, and to leave the kingdom at once. Akira does as told but forgets a small bag behind in his rush to escape. Later that night, the king confronts the princess, saying he cannot believe that the commander was taken down so easily, but the princess confidently tells him that the curse placed upon every single summoned hero has been completed, and now they can finally begin preparations for war against the Eastern Kingdom. By the next morning, Akira makes his way to the labyrinth, which Saren had once told him was the perfect hiding place for anyone on the run. He remembers his mentor's words about how the labyrinth is an ideal place to strengthen one's class, but also a deadly zone where water is scarce and countless monsters roam. Even with concealed presence, Saren had warned he would not be able to hide his scent or footsteps from higher-leveled creatures. Saren also tells him that if he manages to raise his assassin skills to a higher level, he might be able to surpass that limitation and completely erase even his body heat, making him undetectable to any creature. Akira keeps descending deeper into the dungeon, and as the days pass, he finally reaches floor 69. Along the way, he recalls what the commander once told him about the special skill, a unique ability that one attains only after their class level reaches 100. Saren had been confident that once Akira achieved it, he would gain the strength necessary to survive no matter the odds. The commander had also explained that this canteen dungeon has a boss monster guarding every 10 floors, each stronger than the last. After dealing with a pack of firehounds, Akira enters the boss chamber, where he knows he can either advance or retreat only after one side falls. Inside, he faces a monstrous hound with venomous snakes sprouting from its back, and despite his efforts to fight toe-to-toe, the creature completely overwhelms him. As Akira starts to lose strength, memories of his mother, his sister, and the fallen commander flash through his mind. Determined not to die here, he summons the forbidden shadow magic, and in an instant, the black tendrils surge out, tearing the beast apart and reducing it to pieces. Once the monster is defeated, Akira collapses from exhaustion, and the system activates automatically, forcefully switching the shadow magic into a healing mode by extracting the remaining mana stored within it to stabilize his condition. Meanwhile, back in the king's castle, the hero stands up and tries to motivate others to join him on his journey to defeat the Demon King, but most of them refuse because of the curse placed on them, something the hero has already learned about from Gilles. Just as Akira is about to leave, Kyusuke and a few others decide to join him. Once outside, Tsukasa asks why they came along, and the Dispel Mage explains that none of them are cursed, which could be because of her. However, the real reason is that Kyusuke somehow stumbled upon the crystals and accidentally broke some of them. He argues that he must have just lucked out, and when he came back to his senses, he found a katana in his hand. It turns out all of this happened because of the Vice Commander Gilles' skill called Suggestion, which is even stronger than a curse, especially when forcing someone into a single action, which in this case was to force Kyusuke to smash those crystals. Gilles remains calm as he successfully carries out the commander's final order. Kyusuke seems determined to reunite with Akira, feeling guilty for not talking to him when he had the chance and for not standing up for him while being cursed. He recalls the past when he saw Akira working at a construction site where Akira had asked him not to tell anyone, not even his sister, and that was when they both discovered their sisters were classmates. At that same time, our hero wakes up from what feels like a similar dream involving Kyusuke. He hopes his sister Yui and his mother are doing well. As he gets up, he finds himself completely patched up and can't believe it, since the last thing he remembers is having 3 fractured ribs. He has no idea how it happened, but when he checks his shadow magic, it has already leveled up from 3 to 5 and feels much easier to control now. Though he can't figure out what exactly happened, he decides to keep moving since there isn't much time left. As he keeps descending deeper into the dungeon, He eventually reaches the 75th floor, where he comes across a dark slime. When he defeats it, he's surprised to find a beautiful elf trapped inside. Curious, our guy decides to use his World Eye skill for the first time, but the moment he activates it, his eyes start burning painfully, as if he's glimpsed something forbidden, forcing him to cancel it right away. He decides he won't use that skill again unless absolutely necessary. Just then, the elf wakes up, and from what Akira briefly saw through his skill, he realizes that she possesses the same world eyes too, which explains how she somehow knows his name. She asks him what he's doing there, and Akira explains that he's just there to level up, but before he can ask her anything else, she suddenly collapses onto him. Akira carries her all the way up to the 69th floor near a water source. He waits patiently until she wakes up again, which finally happens when her stomach growls from hunger. Our boy gives her some rice and tells her to be careful not to burn her lips while eating. When the girl notices they're on the 69th floor, she looks surprised and asks if he really carried her all the way here. Akira simply explains that this was the nearest water source he could find. The girl then suspiciously asks if he did anything vulgar to her while she was unconscious, but Akira just sighs and tells her to go back to sleep. The girl quietly mentions that she is royalty and then drifts back to sleep, murmuring that no one had ever treated her with such kindness before. Akira also falls asleep soon after, keeping his danger detection skill active just in case. By the next day, the two have made it to the 80th floor, and the elf now uses her gravity magic to help Akira along the way. Akira asks why she's still tagging along when she seems fully recovered, to which she calmly replies that she's simply heading in the same direction as him. When they enter the next boss chamber, a massive dragon suddenly appears before them. The two immediately engage the beast, but Akira quickly finds himself being pushed back by its sheer power. The elf observes that the dragon is tracking his movements through his mana signature and tells him to try blending his mana with the surroundings. Akira admits he can't do that, but instead, he channels his shadow skill, merging his power into darkness before driving his blade straight through the dragon's eye, taking it down in a single strike. Just before the creature collapses, he grabs the elf and moves her to safety. The elf asks what exactly he did just now, and Akira explains that since he couldn't hide his mana, he tried doing the complete opposite instead. As the dragon's body begins to glow faintly, the two stare at it, uncertain about what might come next.